as a marketing professor, one of the biggest challenges that we are facing today is that we are a student now. We go back and we learn every day. If I want to prepare one lecture, is I'm putting like 3-4 hours just to prepare for that specific lecture. Technology moving fast. The book that we used 3 months ago, it's not in again. And the second challenge is actually to find out what skills that the industry need at the moment. Because yes, in the classroom, we teach theory, but at the same time, I don't want my student to come in and tell me, like, Professor, what we learn in the university has nothing to do with what's actually out there in the market. So that's why we love always to connect our student with people you in the industry and find out what skill that they need. So Muad, I wanted to start with you. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to teach you marketing,
No,
okay?
unfortunately not.
Now, as a chief marketing officer, how do you see the marketing industry change in terms of the skills that we actually, since you graduated till now?
I mean, it's a perfect echo. First of all, thanks for having me and thanks for the invite. I am an alumni, and yes, I didn't have the pleasure of studying and learning under you. But I do remember that when I was in university, I mean, social media was not even part of the conversation. I'm a marketing major. And we'd talk about print advertising or retail advertising, retail marketing and PR and so on. But social media wasn't even part of that conversation. And obviously, fast forward now, we've moved so far past that, and it's become such a core part of everything that we do in marketing. And now we have another disruption coming in. In fact, I think it's maybe the second disruption in 3 years, because just around the corner we had the whole metaverse conversation, right? Which seems to have died down for a while, but I think it'll come back eventually. And now we've got obviously AI and generative AI. But I think, I mean, just to maybe somewhat answer your question, just be ready to unlearn, I guess, is the lesson there, because every industry is being disrupted. Obviously, AI is going to disrupt everything, hopefully in a good way. But it seems to me, at least in my career, that marketing seems to be always at the forefront of being disrupted. So the only advice I'd give to myself first, and anybody in the teams or anybody who's willing to take on some advice, is don't get married to any idea. And don't get married to any channel or any form of marketing or communicating, because I think that the rate of disruption has also become so fast, where we used to get disrupted every 4 or 5 years. Now we're getting disrupted every other week.
Exactly. Yeah, that's one of the things that we actually facing today in academia is things are changing fast, and it's hard to keep up. Like, you cannot always approach them and tell them that we want to change curriculum. So we try to do it as much as possible with bringing people who are actually in the market and work on a real project. Speaking about that, Dania, you collaborate with our university in a humanitarian project. And how was the outcome from our student? How did you see that? Did you see them like up with the skills, up with the market? What's going on?
First, thank you so much for this opportunity, and I can agree that they were really equipped from the experience that we had.
To hear that.
I would tell you that our feedback was positive, because at Dubai Humanitarian, we believe in bridging the gap as when it comes to purpose and practice, and the partnership that we had with American University in Dubai. We invited the students in the business program who were studying marketing to take on a real world brief. And this was part of the Capstone project to deliver a campaign to raise awareness and engagement with the youth in the UAE about the Global Humanitarian Impact Fund. And for those who may not know about the GHIF, it's an initiative by His Highness to be prepared during humanitarian crisis, readiness and response. So the students were really surprised us when it come to their maturity and when it come to authenticity, and how they were real equipped with AIs and let's say digital first tools, and it came naturally during this experience and this journey. So the outcome was amazing, and really it's just to give the students the platform, the mentorship to deliver and to put them in hands-on experience. And I would like to acknowledge and thank Dr. Farah, who was part of this at AUD. So it was really her mentorship and dedication that brought this into life.
That's wonderful to hear, actually. See, one of the things that we usually question was in our mind first when we introduced to AI, and I was one of these professors, like first when we hear about AI in 2022, 23, is like when we were talking, sitting with a friend, and one of my friends was telling me about AI, and the first thing came to my mind is how I can prevent my student from using AI and how I can discover if they are cheating. Okay. Now, thank God, once I started to learn about AI, I was like, no, actually, this is something that we can utilize and we can actually thrive through it and get students to use it at the workplace. But now the second question comes as we are using it in our classroom and getting the student to try different AI tools. I wanted to ask you, Maad, in the future, for looking at the human skills, will still be important? Do you think that you will really choose human skill over AI for a graduate?
I mean, this is my view. Sometimes I'm a bit of a naively optimistic person. But I think that what makes marketing special is a higher level of thinking. So if I imagine Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but applied to marketing skills or any skills for that matter, creativity seems to be at the top of that, conceptual thinking, right? So I think the moment AI can take that job is the moment it's already taken over all jobs. So that, prepare your farm, find a hobby, do something you like to do. But I think, just to sort of directly answer the question, I think it's an interesting time, right? Because I think it's perhaps the first time in history, or at least in human history, that we don't have to look for the answers anymore. The answers are there, right? We've got these LLMs or whatever may be the case that can find you the answer to essentially anything. And it can also, to a large extent, and it happens in healthcare, which is where I happen to be, it developed its own answers as well. But I think, from a human interface standpoint, my view is, again, it's the first time in history that we don't need to find an answer, or we don't have that friction, that distance between me and the answer is very short. But actually, the question isn't, right? And I think that's the flip, or that's the transition that I'd like to see, and I think we will see, regardless, is some people call it prompt engineering, right? But it's the same idea. Is the question that the point that the question is far more important than the answer, right? Knowing the question and what to ask and what you're looking for happens to be a much more impactful and much more important element to form, particularly I'm assuming in students that you teach, but similarly in the workplace. And that is a work in progress at the moment, because I think if you're nascent to AI and if you're nascent to LLMs, ChatGPT, whatever, you treat it like Google. Like you ask it a question, it gives you an answer, and you walk off, right? It's a one-way, or at least one-step transaction. Whereas I think with LLMs, the beauty of it is that percolating process, right? You ask it something and gives you an answer, it forms a better question, you ask it the next question, and then there's this back and forth. And for me, the most useful thing I find with AI so far is it's my brainstorming buddy, basically. Like I have half an idea in my head, and now I'm just going to engage in this back and forth with what I probably call the most intelligent intern I could probably hire, and have that conversation. And by the end of that conversation, I've formulated a much better question to ask. Then I look for the answer, right? So I think that's the shift that I probably see and I expect to see more and more of.
See, you mentioned something really interesting, which is, again, the knowledge. Knowledge today is available everywhere. So, and I think that's changed the role of university in the future. We, as a professor, we're not anymore providing knowledge. The knowledge is there. And we have to recognize that. Our role in university as a professor, not anymore providing knowledge. Students can get all the knowledge that they want within a few seconds. And that takes to the rule of just guiding the student through the critical thinking, the emotional intelligence, and to be more kind of like creative, to lead creativity out of them as well. So that's why, again, we always try to get them engaged in real world project. Now, Daniel, I wanted to ask you, since you already work with us at AUD, beside internship, okay, beside these projects, the one that we do as collaboration between company, what other you can offer to our student?
So
that's full today with the whole.
I'll speak from a social impact driven organization. So
Absolutely.
that's, I would say this is an opportunity to create, let's say, a message among marketers, agencies, brands, that when there is a collaboration between, let's say, private, non-profits, and co-design a certain real experience, there is where the added value that are brought to the students and the new generation. And adding to what Moad also mentioned about using AI to complete or to bring that creativity and an extension for creativity, we witnessed it in that journey where we saw that a lot of the campaigns, they visualized it using the right prompts with AI, and we saw like a real campaigns and let's say PSAs and like let's say publicity stunts and let's say with potential partners that felt so real and so relevant because the digital first and tools that they have, and they were real equipped to use it. And internship is great, but also this collaboration, industry can bring a great value when it comes to sharing this data, the mentorship, the feedback loops, that textbooks that cannot teach. So I'm sure with this kind of experience, you are creating talent pipelines where they have the marketing skills and they are social conscious as well.
Absolutely. I think also part of the journey for the student, the mentorship, the one that you just mentioned, students need that nowadays, as also Moad mentioned. There's like, we need students who can lead in the future, okay? Not only rely on AI and everything, but these emotional intelligence skills, they are very important in the future. Moad, just graduated, what 2-3 skills that you really need to see in that person?
Fresh graduates, right? Fresh graduates?
Yes.
I think maybe I'll answer it by saying what I think my job is, as someone who's helping run a department. My job is to create a platform for everyone to succeed. Like, that's the KPI that I set for myself, right? And that is not a seniority thing. I mean, my job is to make sure that the director has the platform to succeed as much as the fresh graduate has the platform to succeed. But let's talk about fresh graduates, because that's the question. If I am successful, inshallah, in creating a platform for everyone to succeed, that means that a student comes in and I only need their grit, passion, determination, whatever you want to call it. Right? Because how to write a press release and how to design an ad and how to run a marketing campaign, whatever it is, you learn that.
Okay.
You learn that through trial and error. You learn that because you have more senior people in the team that are going to impart that. You have agencies that you work with, so on and so forth. But I can't, like, you can take the horse to the water, you can't make him drink the water, right? And that's the same thing here. For a fresh graduate, what I'd like to see, just show me how hungry you are. And that's it. The rest, inshallah, will be left to us.
Absolutely. I think it's the mindset of continue learning and being willing to learn actually is something that's very important for the future. And I get this from parents. Sometimes they ask me, it's like, Professor, like what's one skills that you need? I was like, it's not the knowledge, it's not the lecture, attending the class. It's just you need someone who's hungry, have that hunger to learn. Okay, courses available everywhere now. You find courses for Harvard, for our university, everywhere you can find this knowledge, but you want that person who's constantly want to learn new skills, constantly want to adapt, able to from side to side. Now, Daniel, I wanted to ask you in terms of university, do you see that university, because of policy regulation, usually they're slowly moving in terms of, adapting to the technology. So how do you see that could affect later on the graduate in terms of, how they can adapt with the industry? Like, if we cannot adapt fast, do you think this could be a problem later on?
It's the co-creation. So it's just to not wait for the industry, like for the graduates to emerge, is just to integrate them within, let's say the Capstone project is one of the examples that we brought now, and to give them the hands-on experience, a certain, let's say an academic term where they have a living classroom and they have that a certain clear roadmap, engagement, visits, tours, and offering them certain social and business challenges that they can take part of. So this will help a lot, and also to give them real scenarios, not necessarily simulations, where we had that opportunity where we can give them a hands-on experience to test their knowledge and also to pitch for, let's say, senior decision makers with their ideas. So they had that pressure of like, pitching their ideas, and they have to adapt with feedbacks and let's say communicate strategically. And this is where the areas where you witness the let's say pioneers, leaders of futures when it comes to marketing. So I think it's the co-creation, and to bring them, the faster we bring them into to experience real life projects, the more powerful the marketing ecosystem will be.
Great. Muad, as lately we start to see this trend where, like, especially in the Western world, where they're saying that universities are not important. What we need now, we need skills, okay? Now, I wanted to ask you, you personally, would you think that's still relevant university degree today for marketeers specifically, or you would hire someone just as long as they have the skills for it?
I mean, it should, if you've got the skills, you've got the skills, right? But the question is the university adding value to that person and preparing them for the workplace? And I think undoubtedly, yes. And it wasn't any different when I was in university as I imagine it is today. And in fact, it might be a bit more amplified today. For me, the university didn't teach me so specifically what to know, but it's how to think, correct? And I think whether universities lag because of regulation or whatever, I think it's always going to go down to people like yourself, professor, and other professors, and how they choose to impart their knowledge, right? You can make this an academic exercise and just do what we saw when we were much younger. Rote learning, learn this, write the essay, off you go. Whereas I was watching an academic talk about how she had shifted teaching with AI to not say, no, I want you to write down in a blue pen the essay so that I know you didn't get that off of ChatGPT. She said, no, go ahead. Go use every single ChatGPT or similar tool that you can find and come tomorrow to the lecture to defend your ideas. Right? And I think that's a much more interesting way to approach learning, because again, the answers are available, right? So it's actually, you're almost teaching students how to filter through knowledge, right? Whereas, again, when I was in AED, I'd go to the library to find an answer. I'd look for a book that taught me something. Now it's not, now I'm overwhelmed with information. So my ability to be a critical thinker and filter through that information is actually where I think the value comes. But I mean, to answer your question, I think definitely, I'm a bit biased because I like academia, but I still think it has a large role to play. One, because you're surrounded by people that also want to learn. You're guided by professors that have been there and done that and understand, sort of where the industry is heading. And then you get to work with great people like my colleague here on capstone projects or internships or whatever maybe. So you get real world experience. I guess you could learn on YouTube if you want to, right? But this is a concerted, tailor-made approach that, 9 times out of 10 would yield more benefit to you than if you did it solo.
Actually, like I always get faced where parents, they ask me, it's like, my son doesn't want to go to university, can you speak to him to convince him to come to university? I was actually kind of convincing him, but I can't tell him what's the benefit, because we cannot focus on the knowledge. I think that, as you mentioned, university is the experience, actually, the critical thinking, the network that you create, relationship with the professor, with the student, with investor, with the network, community, alumni. This is what actually it's all about, right? Danny, I wanted to go back to you and ask you about the project that you work on, okay? What's some, like, skills that you see that students need to work on today? Comparing it back when you were at university, do you think that our students now missing certain skills, or something that they need to work on more?
So we've been there, right? So the learning of, let's say, budget constraints, timeline, aligning with stakeholder, let's say, objectives. So this is not something that we used to worry about. So sky is the limits, and whatever the creativity, it was only the creativity that matters. And there is certain criteria that we need to meet. But I think the industrial experience that when you offer the new generation, they would be more creative and strategic thinker And it will help them to be more agile, to adapt with the change, and also to enhance and sharpen their skills to be more realistic and relevant. So, and as I mentioned to you, and to add to what Muad said, I was really surprised to see that they are also hungry to bring something that is realistic in terms. It wasn't that only creating an ad, it was about exploring what social impact means to their generation and how giving can be part of their daily life and to connect. So they really studied and became an advocate to what we do. So it was a journey of taking that data and the knowledge and creating something coming out of creativity and heart. And yeah, so this came with the engaging with the industry firm, I believe.
Oh, I'm very glad to hear that. Going back to you, Muad, now, do you see any difference with the new generation in terms of their commitment to work? Do you feel that it's less in with the AI and like the fast forward as compared to your generation or to my generation?
I'm not going to be that old guy that says kids these days, you know. No, in fact, I think it's quite. I'm very impressed by the next generation. I think you know, they're born with the internet. We weren't. One of our former speakers was talking about the first mobile phone. I remember the Palm Pilot, which was a similar example of a technology that's the watch was launched too soon. But no, I don't think there's any issue. I see hunger. It doesn't change. You know, where does hunger come from? It probably started when you were 6 or younger, right? So it's something in your nurturing, something in your early years that formed that persona. It's not going to be affected because ChatGPT is available or not. I think that comes at a much more core part of someone's psyche. So no, I don't see that any differently. In fact, I think it's beautiful to see how marketeers nowadays, young or experienced, have so many tools for creation available to them, whereas 10, 15 years ago, I needed a team to do what I can probably do today, right? So I can individually take an idea from conception to execution. Yes, it might not be the best idea. It'd be better if I had a big team, but it's possible. So I think it's a much more exciting time for marketeers. I think with all of the clutter that we're going to get from AI-generated spam is going to create even a bigger need for creativity. And coupled with the fact that AI is going to take over the menial jobs, particularly in marketing as well, then you elevate your role to a much more creative space. So the need actually for creativity is much higher now. And I think, at least from my perspective, what I've seen from young people coming to the workplace, they're ready to go.
Yeah, that's I think the advantage of being digital native. Like you're born with the internet, you can easily adapt to it. It's something part of your life. Not as me as a digital immigrant where I have to learn it actually, but still. Like,
I have a 7-year-old daughter, and I was trying to explain to her what the post office is.
Okay.
The other day. Like there's mail that needs to be delivered, but there's no internet. Try to explain that to a 7-year-old.
That's a good one. Dania, how do you see the industry of humanitarian work going to change in the future? Do you think that we need less people? Because I think the human part of your work is very important actually, because that's how you can engage people with whatever initiative that you are launching. But do you see it as we need less people in the future because of AI?
So we're all living in this world and we know how crises are increasing, but unfortunately, marketers plays a big role. And they are creating the messaging and the storytelling to engage with the audience, either if they are the young generation or communities that, to align and with the purpose, let's say. So definitely, we live in a digital world where you want to align with the people, what they see, what they experience. And we experienced that with the new generation, with our project with the AUD, where they really challenged us and bringing new ideas on how they connect with their generation, the way the storytelling and how they created their ad and videos. So definitely we need to adapt with the new tools. We need to adapt with our strategies, with the new trends, so to make it more relevant to the receiver. So, I will bring an example here. And during that experience, One of the things that we helped in, let's say, sharing data with with the students, we showed them how we use AI when it comes to our operation and how we are analyzing climate patterns and predicting crises and how we can be prepared for the future with the right aids and to deliver to be more efficient and prepared. And they use these data to be more creative and strategic and data-driven content when it comes to their marketing strategy. So it was part of the mentorship is to show how we use and utilize AI when it comes to the humanitarian sector, and they used it to be more relevant and deep to connect with the community on how we are creating that trust and to deliver faster, efficient during when a disaster strike.
Wonderful. Muad, I wanted to ask you a question here about, you mentioned your daughter, 7 years old, okay? Now, as she's going through her education journey, I'm pretty sure you want her to learn about technology and AI, everything. Does that sometimes concern you that AI might, affect the way that she develop her thinking, her critical thinking? Because, in this age, student or kids, they still didn't fully develop their critical thinking and they cannot tell, and the AI is still biased. Let's admit that. So you want her to distinguish between both. And I had a friend actually the other day, I was talking with him about his kids, and he told me, I noticed lately my kids, they not ask me much question anymore. I was like, yeah, because they have a friend named AI there in the background. They ask him actually. So for you, how do you think how you manage that?
It's a good question. And I think critical thinking is always going to be the most important thing that we can. How do you teach critical thinking? I mean, if you know, please let me know. But I think that's the thing that you want to get across to them as much as possible. I think any technology that comes, there's always a price to pay, right? I'm pretty sure when the first humans started writing things down on stones, their memories got weaker. I guarantee you. I mean, there's always a price to pay, right? But hopefully the upside is much bigger. And I happen to think it is. But it's a question of how do we maneuver that and how, what skills to teach our kids. Watch this space, to be honest, I don't know. I try to apply my thinking of what I think she should learn and what I should hopefully impart, whether it's critical thinking, curiosity, a passion, and then, sort of determination. Right, and I think that's the one thing that I'd like to make sure I get across. Maybe because life has become easier, and there's no doubt about that. But I think when life gets easier, you're less of a hustler, in a sense, right? You're less of there's less grit to you. So how do you maintain that level of determination, that curiosity, that willingness to learn and make mistakes and not let affect you and move on? That's, I think, every parent's dream, right? And hopefully that's what we can get across.
And to keep this open dialogue with them, because they have all the information, as you said, they have it on the screen, but to have this ongoing dialogue with them and to keep, they are receiving it without filtration. So, and this is where our role to help and shift and to know what is the right and wrong, either when it comes to a personal life or when it comes to mentorship and teaching. So, yeah, to keep that dialogue and, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I saw lately that many of the AI company actually they start to create this version for AI specifically for kids, which is like ChatGPT, education, and other platform where specifically actually these AI are enable kids or students to still using AI but using their critical thinking, which I think is a great tool actually.
I think I was seeing, I was watching a video yesterday. Google released this new tool that you essentially tell it the book that your child is studying, so the title of the book, and they've indexed all of these books, of course. And it will develop all of the teaching content in the style of the child. So you tell it, I want it to be visual, and I want flowcharts, and I want it to be, I like football. So it will stop saying, person X in a physics or object A and object B in a physics problem. It will say the football was kicked by this, and it will adapt the style of learning or a style of teaching for that child, which I think is a very interesting way of personalization in teaching, right?
Absolutely. Well, we try to do that as much as possible because, to be honest, the case study that I remember when I started teaching at AUD back in 2015, we used to have these Harvard Business Review case study, which is 25 pages. And within the time, I started to notice that these students start to get bored with these long Harvard case study, and we start to cut them. So now when I'm searching on Harvard Business Review cases, I'm looking for something not more than 8 pages because again, once the students still engage, and with the time, their attention, spam attention just keeps shrinking within the time. So, which is again, this is very important to keep them learning.
There's a lot of these tools, right? I use Notebook LM. If you
Yeah.
And you
It's
can
one of my
generate
favorite,
podcasts.
actually.
Yeah, I love it because I can take a boring or a dry topic and turn it into a podcast. And we're a generation, and even more so the younger generation, very accustomed to podcast formats, right? It's a good way to learn.
It's actually, as you mentioned, that now what I do when first I enter the class, I record my class, and then after I finish, I turn it on Google LM, I turn it to podcast where I upload it for them in Blackboard, because I know that most of them, they are high in podcast, so they when go to gym, they walk, they still can read it maybe more interesting way than I teach it in the class. So they have different way of listening to it. Daniel, let me ask you, in the future, if you have a student today, you're going to give them advice for the future, one advice, okay? What would you give them?
Actually,
In a marketing or in a humanitarian world, like you can give them.
in both. So I come from a different background, but I was emphasizing on the social, let's say, conscious element when it comes to bringing to the world the change makers. Marketers are change makers, and when they combine their marketing skills with social consciousness, and this is where they elevate and bring something more impactful to the table, and always to have that mindset. It's really, as we live in Dubai, CSR, community and social responsibility, it's always add value to any brands and what they do. So that collaboration they put in their mind in future strategies in terms of with private sector and non-profits, let's say, it will always, they will be part of meaningful, let's say, journey. So I would like to shed a light on that angle, let's say. This is the first thing came to my mind, to be honest.
Muad, if I bring you to my class and I ask you to give advice for the first year student who just starting their journey learning marketing, okay, what advice would you give?
By the
them?
way, I should say that I've come to other professors.
I would love to have you in my class. So this is an official invitation for Muad to come to my class.
I don't think he wants me there, to be honest.
No, definitely.
no,
we'll love to have you in my class.
It'll be a pleasure. Thank you. I think just stay curious is the only, I mean, again, right, we're in such a disruptive period of time. Things are going to change a lot. The givens are going to change a lot. So as long as you're curious enough to learn and brave enough to unlearn, I think those are the most important tools. And you know where this leads, we'll see, and we'll figure it out when it comes. But in the process, you know, I think that the previous panel was talking a lot about agility and adaptability, and I would echo that 100%. You know, stay hungry, stay curious, find out what's happening, what's changing, how that affects your industry. I mean, I was looking at Google's just recently, I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday, decided to remove the 100 field results on their search page, and they've limited to 10,
okay,
which is catastrophic for LLMs, right? Because all of these LLMs piggyback on Google's indexing, right? Google's basically the yellow pages of the internet. So that your visibility now on the largest search platform in the world, particularly if you're like a young business or a small business, is so much more constrained now. I mean, I'm giving you an example of one thing, but this is a monumental shift in the way that the supply chain of content comes to you on the internet, right? This is like taking the largest sport in the world and shrinking it by a 10th, right? So I think, you know, stay abreast. Know what's happening, be curious, and you know, keep an eye on where this trend goes.
Absolutely. Finish in time? Okay. All right. I would like to thank you both of you.
Thank you, Professor.
It was my pleasure, and thank you for listening.